baseball, Blue Jays, and more baseball.
So last night I recorded my debut comedy album, and you came along. It was awesome.
I did. Good time.
Joel, Hey Commie, showed up. And then we had some walk-off listeners that came out, and I loved when, and Isaac is in Discord. He's the one kind of the driving force, if you will, behind our secondary fantasy league for everyone who didn't get into the first one and make it in the draw. But I love so much that he came up to you and was like, if it isn't the best co-host in the biz.
Yeah. I was like, whoa, what's happening here? So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. So.
I just got a kick out of, like, because that's how I always describe you. And I'm like, I'm Scott Belford. Welcome to the walk-off, joined by the best co-host in the biz. And it's just nice to know the listeners are picking up on that.
Absolutely. No, it's good times.
No,
great job last night, by the way. You're
Oh, thank you.
So funny. It was. I mean, I've seen all your material before, but it was perfect. You did great. So.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, so I will have that album out. Everyone who's listening and is, for whatever reason, curious about what I do for a living, the comedy side of things, hopefully in the summer, my debut album, Staying Together for the Cat, will be out. So I'm sure we'll be mentioning that on here a few times. I don't like to cross streams too much here, but, if you baseball lovers can just appease me this one time here. Okay, my dude, lots to get to here. We do have some really big interviews coming up on Monday. We're sitting down with Jeff Blair of Sportsnet. Fingers crossed. I know with Danny Jansen being injured, we'll need to play it by ear as if he can fit us in or not or what's going on. But hopefully we get to sit down with, and I just love saying it, the starting catcher for the Toronto Blue Jays, Danny Jansen. That would be super cool.
Very cool.
And I think I feel safe enough announcing this other guest. I know I heard from our contact from him yesterday, and it looks like it's massaging into next week sometime, but it looks like we're going to be able to sit down with 1992 and 93 World Series champion with the Toronto Blue Jays, Dwayne Ward, which
very
would be
cool.
Very, very cool. Absolutely. Cool. So hopefully that's sometime next week. Again, things are shifting. I know we were teasing that Jeff Blair was going to be last Monday, and then he canceled last minute. That's the thing with being a small Canadian podcast. Sometimes you get bumped for more important things with these people, but we just appreciate so many of them taking the time to sit down with us. You can follow us on Twitter at Walk Off Podcast and Instagram, The Walk Off Podcast. Of course, shout out to all our Patreons. Really appreciate that when you pay that $4 a month, besides just supporting a couple bonehead comedians who love to produce content for the Toronto Blue Jays and never put Blue Jays content behind a paywall. You're also going to be allotted our movie reviews, baseball movie reviews. We do that every single month. This month, or I should say last month, March, was A League of Their Own, and then this month is going to be Moneyball. We've also done Mr. Baseball, Major League, and Bull Durham. So those are fun, and if you feel like supporting, that's great. If not, honestly, hit subscribe, hit like. However you support is totally up to you, and it's all appreciated. All right, buddy, we're going to get into it here. Lots to get to. Vladdy the Crusher, holy cow, man. That boy, we're going to get into it. He hit his second, as Canadians love to refer to it, second bat trick of his career against the Yankees. The Jays go 2-2 in that New York series, which was super important, getting the split. We'll delve into that series. We're going to talk the Oakland series coming up. Matt Chapman facing his old team. And we're going to see some familiar faces in Kevin Smith and Kirby Snead. Oblique, oblada, as the Beatles would say. Oh, my goodness, man. That oblique just seems to be really hitting the Jays this year. Both Danny Jansen and Teoscar Hernandez on the IL for that, so we'll touch on that. The Markham Madman breaks a saves record for the Blue Jays. We're going to talk unwritten rules of baseball and, of course, that insanity that was Clayton Kershaw pitching a perfect game into the 8th inning and then being pulled. We'll talk that as well. Let's do it. I guess we will start with that Yankees series, buddies. We needed a split. We got a split. How did you feel about that series?
Good, other than injuries. Injuries makes me feel like that's a C-. Like if we split and we're healthy, that's an A+.
Yeah.
The injuries are a big concern for me. Hopefully they're nothing long term. Hopefully this is a short stint on the IL. I mean, we saw it with Teoscar. I think it was 2020. Similar oblique strain. Was kind of expected to be out for longer than he was. Came back right as soon as the 10-day stint ended and kind of shocked everybody. So hopefully that's the thing. What is an oblique is my question. It's a muscle?
Yeah, it's a leg muscle, right? It's in that quad.
Okay, I wasn't sure if it was on the side,
right?
like of your upper body or like a hip area. It's in your
Well,
it's in your leg.
We're gonna find out in the comments. I'm sure we're both probably looking
You're
like
just
idiots
guessing
right now. But
all right, whatever
I'm
it is,
guessing.
it's a dangerous muscle to hurt. So for that reason, I don't have an oblique.
It's easily reactivated. The injury is the problem, right? Like I know we saw George Springer aggravate his over and over last year. It was really frustrating. So again, knock on all the wood. Hopefully it's not a big deal. And what is eye-opening about this dude is if you think about how much we talked about the depth on this team and how much better we felt about the depth than last year, and then you start to lose a few key cogs, and all of a sudden that depth doesn't look so good anymore. And listen, I just wish to also say the sky is not falling. You know, like I know I've been on Blue Jays Twitter, and there's a little bit of panic about what's going on. You know, a lot of talk about Collins and Heineman and how much they suck and how can we have these guys. But to put it in perspective, Zach Collins was the third catcher on this team. He wouldn't have even been carried if it wasn't for the fact that they had the expanded roster, the 28-man roster. There's no way Zach Collins would be on this team. So Danny Jansen goes down. All of a sudden, Collins is thrust into that number 2 hole. Heineman gets called up, who's a AAA catcher. Like, there's a reason these guys are where they're at. So when you go and you watch Heineman go 0 for 4, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like, you'd hope to get production out of some of this depth, but at the same time, they're there for a reason.
Yeah. There's not a lot of teams who have... I think we're probably one of the deeper teams at catcher. Like having one offensive contributor at catcher is incredibly fortunate in the MLB. We have 2 of them. Like that's a spoil of riches to have 2 like competent hitting catchers. So of course, when you get down to the 3rd and the 4th, it's gonna seem pretty bare bones. But I think that is, like you said, that is wishful thinking is an understatement to hope to get to production
And I
from
mean,
those guys.
There were some real positives and some real things to take out of this series. Manoah was absolutely dominant. He looked so good. That man just has something in him special when it comes to playing the Yankees. He plays them hard. And, I mean, he's not stretched out. He only pitched, what was it? I think it was 83 pitches, something like that. We probably are going to be corrected here, but that's fine. You know, and he pitched into the 6th inning, got his win, didn't allow a run. Just a heck of a game to kind of set the tone for the series. And then I know that game 2, Kikuchi, as advertised, I suppose, right?
For better or for worse,
he had some moments. I mean, he flashed moments of brilliance, you know, like you could see why the Blue Jays are attracted to his stuff and like what he brings to the table. He also had moments where you're like, oh, this is why he was the worst pitcher in baseball the last half of 2021. Gave up some deep fly balls, man. He got lucky a few times there if you look back. Like, yeah, he only allowed 3 runs over, I think it was 3 1/3 or 3.2 innings, something like that. Just under 4. He had some strikeouts. He looked good at times, but again, like some deep fly balls that Lourdes Gurriel, by the way, has looked so good in left field, like the best I've ever seen him. I don't even feel nervous like I used to when the ball is hit out to him.
Yeah, he had one drop in front of him yesterday that looked ugly.
Okay, well, I missed that.
Yeah, I know you were getting ready for your album, but it was just kind of a trouble, no man's land, kind of a blooping single into left field that looked like he wanted to make the dive for, and then 3 steps before he got there kind of held up, and it short hopped right in front of him and got past him, and runs scored. And anything in the air that doesn't touch the ground, he's good for. But as soon as it's touching the ground, that's when I start to get nervous. So
No, and that's a really good point. And I think we can say the same thing for Teoscar, is that they've become much better outfielders over the last couple of years.
Yep.
But their roots to the ball still are lacking at times, you know, like their decision making in that
exactly.
minute second.
Right.
And you just brought it up, right? Like where it's about to bounce off the ground and he's like, should I charge? Should I back up? Like, how do you play this? Whereas when it's in the ball, he can just get on his horse, run it down.
Yeah.
And away we go.
So we went 2-2 against
Manoah
the
looked
Yankees. Good. Yeah.
Gucci didn't.
Gossman played well yesterday, despite
he
getting the
looked
loss.
good bounce back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a good outing from him. Couldn't get the bats going, but I'm not worried. Not worried at all about any of our start. I shouldn't say that. Kikuchi, I do have question marks with still.
Yes.
Gossman, I'm completely.
Yeah.
I feel fine with. That'll get sorted out. I've faith in the Shapiro Atkins team. If they thought he was legit, I've seen enough to be on board. Barrios had a good bounce back game. Manoah looks good as ever. Ryu.
Manoah looks great. I'm not worried about Ryu.
No.
Like, I'm really not worried about Ryu, personally. But yeah, Kikuchi is a question mark. It was interesting, too, to see Chapman get the day off yesterday. I know he's been struggling at the plate a little bit since his arrival in Toronto, and I think a lot of it has to do with just he's gripping that bat tight. He's not getting good swings going. He's just playing tight, man. He's playing tight.
I think part of the rest there with Chapman is he's going to get a full workload this year, and with the Oakland series coming up starting today and his former team, I assume just for a bunch of reasons better to have him rest on game 4 of the Yankees than miss any of these games against the Athletics. But can we talk batting order, what we saw yesterday against the Yankees?
Yes. You're talking about Raimel Tapia being in the 5-hole?
Yeah. So I know this is mostly a product of the bad taco situation we've encountered.
Yes.
And then also giving Chapman the day off. But hey, look how balanced our lineup was. We had 3 lefty bats in there. So everybody who's a big proponent of getting lefty bats in there, hope you liked the lineup we had yesterday, because that's it. That's your fucking lefty balanced lineup. So right on. I don't know how else to sum it up. I would rather have Teoscar and Chapman in there as right-handed bats than Zimmer and Tilapia, but in any case.
Hashtag tilapia.
Hashtag tilapia, yes. Delicious fish, terrible hitter.
Man, I don't know. Like, when it comes to Tapia, I feel the same way about him as I do about Heineman, where you're just like, he's the 4th outfielder. Sucks that now he's that 3rd outfielder. And I you hear a lot of people say Grishik would look good here, and I can't help but agree with that. But at the same time, Randall Grishik had his flaws. Everyone's forgetting, I'm guessing. Like, obviously, he was also our 4th outfielder, and I know he's playing every day in Denver, but he's going to strike out just like he always did. Like,
yeah, he is. I mean, I wish him the best in Colorado. But yeah, like, injuries are going to happen. You have to, like, somewhat be prepared for injuries, but also it is a bit of a crapshoot, right? Like, you can't just have an all-star backup at every position, right? Like, there's going to be some point in your roster management where you're like, well, we just hopefully are healthy, you know? Like, regardless of how deep your team is, you want to be healthy. So right now we're not, but this will be a good test, you know? We still need to win against Oakland. We have 3 games set at home against Oakland.
Yep.
How
going to be Stripling.
Okay.
Stripling tonight, and then into Ryu and Manoah. So Oakland is. This is the one thing about Oakland.
Okay.
Is I mean, we need 2 of 3. I'm hoping for a sweep. Oakland's whole lineup is fourth outfielders
Yeah.
and
Yeah. No, they're the
You know?
Baltimore Orioles of the AL West. Somehow they're always, I don't know, they seem to be better than they deserve to be based on the way ownership runs that team.
And the good news with this series is we dodge Frankie Montas, who is like the one solid pitcher that squad has.
Yeah.
So you cross your fingers, you hope that even with the depleted starters that they've got right now, with Teoscar down and Jansen down, that the backups can fill in admirably enough to win the series and at least take 2 or 3.
I think these are the series that, like, if we want to be a World Series contender, if we want to be a 100-win team, these are absolutely the series that, like, we need to sweep these guys. Like,
Yes.
2 out of 3 almost feels like a split, Like, we've got roughly 60 games against the Rays, Yankees, and Red Sox this year. 57 games. Well, let's just call it 60, right? Mm-hmm. Probably going to win around 30 of those. Right? Like, we're going to finish 30 and 30, roughly, right? Give or take 4 wins in either direction. So, of the other 105 games left on your schedule, you need to come together with 70 wins. So, here's 3 that are on the table, and I think we need all 3 of them. These, I don't want to say bottom feeder teams, but teams like this, teams like the Orioles, like, we can't just be donating wins to the Orioles this year. We got 19 games against the Orioles. What did the Rays win against the Orioles last year? All 19?
18 or something like that.
18-1 against the Orioles.
Yeah.
So that's what we need to do. We need to go 15-3 or 15-4 or whatever the case may be. Like, at a minimum, that's the difference between
the
home
Oakland
field
Athletics
advantage
spent
throughout the
zero-
playoffs and not, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Like, the Oakland Athletics spent $0 in free agency this year. There is no reason the Jays shouldn't win this series, shouldn't sweep this series. So that's the hope, and I couldn't agree more with you. Like, when these opportunities present itself, especially when you're coming from a division like the AL East, you need to take advantage of it. And our pitching is lined up to do so. I really love that Ryu and Manoah are the guys at the last 2 of these. We need to get through the bullpen day. Stripling's probably going to pitch 2 to 3 innings. He's not built up. He probably has 60 to 80 pitches in him, so I don't think we're going to see him much past the 3rd or 4th. But if he can get through the lineup once without any trouble, that's huge, man.
Yeah.
So, Jordan Romano, I know we are always tooting the horn of the Markham Madman. I know we spent quite a bit of time on him in the mailbag on Tuesday, but I did wish to bring up, because we touched on it on Tuesday, that he had just tied Tom Hankey's Blue Jays organization record for 26 consecutive saves, and he, of course, just broke that the other day. And 27 consecutive saves, the lone holder of the most consecutive saves in Toronto Blue Jays history. Tom Hankey was a stud, no slouch at all. Just an incredible record to take over for this Canadian kid. Gotta love to see it. It's a little tip of the hat to Jordan Romano.
Yeah, very cool. I think big year coming for Jordan Romano, I think. Very excited.
Yeah, we have touched on that, and yeah, I think the sky's the limit for him. He's going to really establish himself as one of those elite relievers.
Absolutely.
So
we've got, before we move
anything
on
to
here,
touch on Blue Jays? Yeah.
No,
okay.
let's just look at the schedule. We do have 3 against the A's this weekend. Reminder, afternoon games on Saturday and Sunday. And then Monday, April 18th, is our lone day off for the next 3 weeks. On the other side of that, we have Red Sox for 3, Astros for 3, and then back to Boston for 4. Oh, no, Boston comes to town for 4. So,
which makes this series against the Athletics even more important, to take as many wins as you possibly can. Like, we are getting to the meat grinder portion of April's schedule.
Well, yeah, Red Sox, then Astros, then Red Sox, then Astros. Like, that's...
Yeah, that stint of games could do a lot of damage if they're not
Oh, and then you know what? Once we get back into
getting some W's.
Once we're into May, it's after we finish with the Astros, it's right into the Yankees. So on the other side of the Yankees is the Guardians, who we'll see what the Guardians. Sometimes they're always a bit of a scrappy team, so those aren't going to be four easy wins at the end of that either, leading up to the day off on May 9th. So yeah, I don't really see any easy wins until May 20th again when we got the Reds, because yeah, Red Sox, Astros, Yankees, Guardians, Yankees, Rays, Mariners.
Gross.
And then we're into the
they
the Reds
need
and Cardinals and
to
stuff.
take it to Oakland this weekend. Absolutely, they
Yeah,
do.
big time.
Whew. When you lay it all out like that, man.
I know, I'm exhausted just reading those names. So yeah.
Okay. Should we move on from Blue Jays here? I did want to talk unwritten rules.
Yeah, you bet.
You don't have anything else to
course.
add on the Blue Jays. So on Tuesday, we watched the Giants and the Padres get a little scrappy, and the bench is emptied. Managers were yelling at each other. Bob Melvin of the Padres was very vocal about how he didn't like the fact that the Giants, I think it was in the second or third inning, stole a base, up 9-2, swung 3-0.
It was the sixth inning, I think, actually.
Was it the sixth? Okay, yeah. Nonetheless, despite Melvin's frustrations with this, and obviously unwritten rules in baseball, I mean, it's kind of been talked about forever. Baseball is shifting as a game, becoming more youth-orientated. Values are being put on different areas than they used to, and let's face it, and this is what Gabe Kapler of the Giants said, he doesn't even care about Game 1. He wants to win the series. And if he has a chance to bury the opponent's bullpen in Game 1, he's going to take it 100% of the time, and he doesn't care how upset other teams get about it. How do you feel about that mentality?
Yeah, I love it. I think that's absolutely a big consideration for sure. I mean, from the other side, we've been on. Well, I mean, we watched Barrios on day one against the Rangers go 1/3 of an inning before getting pulled, right? And the frustrations there of like, holy, we're gonna just burn through our whole bullpen today, and you start questioning, well, at what point do we throw Espinal out there to start chucking pitches just to save our bullpen, so that today's loss doesn't also affect our ability to win tomorrow and the next day, right? So it's for sure a consideration. And I'm fully on board there.
Especially if you look at a team like the Jays, right? Like a team like the Jays, we watched them go down 7-0. So can you imagine the Jays in the 5th inning down 7? Just abide by the rules, like the unwritten rules of baseball, and just aren't taking a base here or doing that there. Like, sorry, not the Jays, the Rangers, right? Like, if the Rangers start letting up against the Blue Jays, like that's the thing with baseball today, is that so many teams have the ability to come back from 9 runs, let alone how the rest of the series unfolds.
Yeah.
Right? And how it affects the rest of the series.
Yeah, no, it's dumb. It's I don't know. I think, look, mercy rules exist in youth sports for a reason, right? Like, if we want to talk not embarrassing the other team and whatever, sure.
Great point.
Let's do it for the kids. I agree. But that's why the mercy rule exists, right? You're up 15 runs after 4 innings or whatever. Okay, we're literally not even going to play out the last 3 innings, right? But these, once people start getting paid to perform, right? Like, every time that you don't steal that base, right? Like, if that's the difference between 15 stolen bases at the end of the year and 20 stolen bases, right? Like, those are all factors when your next contract comes up, right? Like, I mean, Fernando Tatis last year
100% it is.
got in trouble for swinging 3-0, bases loaded and they're up 100 runs or whatever the case was, right? It's like, guess what? 2 extra home runs on your season total looks a lot better than 2 extra walks when it comes to negotiating $300 million contracts. Also, when it comes to negotiating $10 million contracts, right? So my livelihood depends on it as a player expected to perform, right? So nobody goes into no one goes into contract negotiations and is like, yeah, my stats are low, but man, do I ever abide by those unwritten rules? So that's got to be worth something, right? No, it's not. So
see, and this is what's frustrating when a guy like Bob Melvin comes out and complains about it, is the exact same scenario where Bob Melvin is complaining about something like a stolen base or a swing on a 3-0 pitch would also be used against that player in negotiation later on down the road, right? Where they're like, you just said it, right? Nobody is going to get extra money for one extra walk. However, a grand slammy with 4 extra RBIs, like those numbers matter.
Yeah.
So if it's a two-way streak, if you expect players to constantly do the right thing when it comes to sportsmanship, then you also need to reward them for that, because they're not, right? Like, it's like this.
Look, I remember when I was a kid, I think it was Pavel Bure for the Vancouver Canucks. I don't know if he led the league in scoring or he had a 50-goal season or what the case was, but he had and correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but he had something like 11 empty net goals that year. Right? So it's like, okay, sure, you got 50, but really you got 39 and then 11 empty netters, right? But no one looks back at that and is like, well, it was a 39 goal season. A goal is a goal, right? So same thing with home runs and RBIs and whatever your total is at the end of the year. No one's going to Fernando Tatis or whoever the case may be and sure, you got 112 RBIs this year, but 16 of those were on 3-0 counts when you guys were up by 15 runs and you were doing it off of a position player on the mound, right? Nobody cares. A run is a run. An RBI is an RBI. A home run is a home run at the end of the year. I'm going to keep playing to win until you stop playing to win, right? I don't know.
I agree 100% with you. And this transitions perfectly into what we're going to end on here, which is yesterday, Clayton Kershaw, 7 innings, perfect through 7. I'm not talking no-hitter, perfect game on the go through 7 innings, and Dave Roberts pulls him at 80 pitches. So there's a little bit to unpack here before we start getting into our opinions on this. Number one, obviously a shortened spring training. You look around the league, there have been an increase in injuries, which is something that MLB was worried about, and we're seeing it again. We saw it in 2020 when they condensed spring. We're seeing it now. We're seeing it firsthand on the Blue Jays. And all of these pitchers aren't built up yet. We're seeing every single pitcher in the league being pulled after 80, 85 pitches because they're not at 110 pitches yet. Now, that said, there are hundreds of no-hitters that have happened in baseball. So if this was a no-hitter, this isn't even news.
So, okay, before we move any further past this, and I'm sorry for everybody who knows the difference, right? But we do have some casual fans. Caitlin in the UK, for example. Let's just break down the difference between a no-hitter and a perfect game, because they're similar, but the differences are significant.
Substantial, yes. Okay, so perfect game is going to be when there's no walks, there's no hits, there's no hit by a pitch.
No errors.
It is 27 up, 27 down. No errors. It's a perfect game. No-hitter, there's been lots of no-hitters where there's been no-hitters where the other team has scored.
Yeah.
Where there's been 4 or 5 walks, some errors, some missed throwing balls. No-hitter is still very impressive, but it's not perfection. And so I don't know the exact number. We should look it up, I guess. But how many perfect games have there been in all of baseball history?
24.
Yeah.
All time.
And again, there's been hundreds of no-hitters.
So the rarity is wild. It's also because it's Clayton Kershaw, I mean, Hall of Fame bound for sure, right? He doesn't have any perfect games to his name. I don't know. How do you feel about this one? Him getting pulled after 7. He'd thrown 80 pitches, coming back from injury last year. Was it the right call? Do you agree with it? Does it put a knot in your stomach the way it puts one in mine?
I don't like it. I don't like it, but I do understand it. So,
Okay.
as a baseball fan, my first reaction is you send him out. You let him go. If I was a Dodgers fan, maybe I am a little bit more concerned about that, and maybe I do lean towards Dave Roberts' move and pulling him here, because if you lose Clayton Kershaw for an extended period of time because you sent him out there and he wound up throwing an arm out in week 1 of the season, how do you ever forgive yourself, right? You know these guys aren't built up. That said, Clayton Kershaw has always been a horse. 80 pitches is pretty minimal. It's not like he was at 100 pitches. If he was at 100 pitches, this is a completely different conversation. But 80 pitches is so minute. So did he have another 25 pitches in him? That's probably what it would have taken to get through the game. Who knows, man? I really don't like that they pulled him. And I mean, if you go back in history, there's been 2 pitchers in all of baseball history who have been pulled after 7 innings of perfect game. And that's Rich Hill and Clayton Kershaw. Both Dodgers, both Dave Roberts, who made that call. Which says something about Dave Roberts. He's prepared to make the tough call, right? But as a baseball fan, I hated it. How do you feel?
Yeah,
You don't like it.
No, it's disgusting. Like, was it probably the right move? Was it the responsible thing to do? Like, yeah, probably. But I don't watch sports for like impressive feats of responsibility, right? Like, I don't know. It's, I mean, look back to the World Series with the Rays and the Dodgers, right? And pulling, what was the pitcher there?
Blake Snell.
Oh, Blake Snell, thank you. Was having a dominant game in, what was it, Game 6 of the World Series?
Yep.
But analytics said 3rd time through the order, he's getting pulled no matter what. And nobody liked that call. It turned out to be the wrong call, but whatever. Hindsight's 2020. I put this in the same category of decisions of like, no, he had a pitch limit no matter what. It was 80 or whatever the case may be. Didn't, perfect game or anything. He's not going back out there after 80 pitches. This is the sort of stuff that's like ruining the game of baseball, right? In my opinion. I don't know if that's too harsh of a reaction or not, but like, baseball needs this sort of stuff. Like, this is like literally like a historic moment that they are on the precipice of, right? Like, these kind of games are why the MLB network exists, right? Everybody's got their local TV deals, but then if there's a perfect game happening, right? If there is something historic happening anywhere in any ballpark, the MLB has like the legal rights to start broadcasting that game on the MLB network, right? So like, it's for significant historical feats, and this was one of them, and it's just so
80 pitches, man. Like, now, the more I think about it, the more I'm like, 80 pitches? You're pulling him after 80 pitches?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know either.
Listen,
I mean,
the truth is, too,
we
don't know every detail. We don't know. I mean, Kershaw came out and said all the right things afterwards, right?
Had to, of course, right?
This was probably had to, of course, because he's a team guy. Obviously he's a team guy, because when he went out and got pulled, he didn't have a complete conniption fit, which there's pitchers who would have, right? You got to feel for him, though. I mean, we're talking historical feat here.
Yeah, I also feel like, I don't know how injuries work in the arm, so let me just put that asterisk there first, okay? But I do feel like you take the seasoned vet factor of Clayton Kershaw, and I feel like for those last 6 outs, he's going to be somewhat responsible with his arm, right? Like he's going to pick his spots. I don't think he's given max effort on every pitch for those last 6 outs, right? If less than max effort leads to a base hit or a walk or whatever the case may be, perfect, pull him out. You're off the hook now, right? I don't think he's going out there guns a-blazing, really trying to overextend, just because he is such a veteran guy. Right now, if Alek Manoah is in that situation, his first appearance of the year, gets to 80 pitches, and it's the 7th inning, maybe I don't feel as bad about pulling him, right? Because I love Alek Manoah, but I don't trust Alek Manoah to let up on the gas pedal after 80 pitches on his opening performance, right? Whereas I do think that Kershaw, but again, I don't know how injuries in the arm work, so maybe there's
a good point. That is such a good point that I didn't really think of, is just like put it in the veteran's hands. Yeah. You know, like Kershaw knows his body. He's been injured a pile throughout his career. He has missed major time throughout his stint with the Dodgers. I feel like he's at a point in his career where maybe, but who knows? I mean, maybe he went up to Roberts and was like, hey, like, can you do me a favor? I can't see that being the case.
I can't either.
That's not how competitive.
Hey, like, it's so easy, though, to be like hindsight checking and double guessing each other, because, like, let's be honest too, if he goes out there for the 8th inning and then has a season-ending case of bad tacos
injury,
right, then we're like, what the fuck are you putting him out? He already pitched 80. It's his first game. He's back from injury. Why are you pitching him for 95 plus pitches? Like, who cares about a thing in April? Like, so there is a no-win situation. It's weird.
It's a no-win situation. No.
Yeah.
They
need Kershaw to be healthy. They need Kershaw to pitch 30 games, right? So, yeah, it would have been cool. It's too bad.
Yeah, it would have been cool. Well, I guess we'll end it on that. I'm big
exhausted.
Sigh.
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah.
Stripling goes tonight.
All right, well, Stripling tonight, Ryu tomorrow, Manoah on Sunday. Just a reminder, all Blue Jays fans, too, we are doing the long toss. I know it is Easter Sunday, but we are going to continue to do that. We've got the boys from 450 Dead Center joining us. Of course, Hey Kami, Joel will be joining us, and then the two of us, and then we'll see. Maybe Craig Ballard pokes his head in again. We'll see. So that's Sunday, and that goes every single Sunday, 6 to 8 East. Of course, we've got Mailbag on Tuesday. Hopefully, we're talking with Danny Jansen and Jeff Blair on Sunday, or I should say Monday, and then hopefully Dwayne Ward sometime next week, but we'll keep everyone posted on that. Thanks so much for hitting subscribe, for hitting like, for any of the comments you put down. Always appreciate the interaction. Our Discord is always free, and there's a link in the show notes that you can join there. Again, we'll see you on Sunday, everybody. Have a great weekend. Have a good Easter. Cheers.